While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season, literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Reaching out to the 50 million Christ followers in America who are already in retirement or maybe fast approaching retirement, you've tuned into iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece for the Retirement Reformation, online at retirementreformation.org, retirementreformation.org. Please download our app, Retirement Reformation. Get access to all the resources we offer out there and get a membership to get access to even deeper resources like some one-on-one training and tutoring. It's all out there at retirementreformation.org or on our app, Retirement Reformation. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, I'm joined by the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Bruinsma. Perhaps the most underutilized talent in the kingdom of God is the talent and the ability of mentoring another. I once heard a famous speaker say that everybody should have a Paul, a Timothy, and a Barnabas in their life. What does that mean? It means that everybody should have a mentor, everybody should have an encourager, and everybody should be mentoring somebody not as far along in their walk with Christ. So how about you? Are you investing your life in another? Do you have anybody investing their life in you? Today, Bruce Bruinsma and I are going to talk about the power and the value of mentoring and what it looks like to put it into action. This discussion is based on chapters 4 and 5 in the book, I Retire for Him, found online at iworkforhim.com/bookstore. Bruce Bruinsma, welcome back to I Retire for Him.
Well, I'm really excited about our conversation today because I think it opens so many doors and it's so foundational to what God is calling us to do and the opportunity that extends to every single Christ follower to be able to do it. There are no barriers to doing it other than the lies or the barriers that you may create yourself or someone creates for you. So I'm really excited about the open door that mentoring in this whole topic will be for all of us as both a reminder and an encouragement.
Well, let's get personal, Bruce. Have you ever had a mentor in your life?
I had a couple of mentors, and they come in a series of different styles. Some of them, so for example, most Friday mornings I go have breakfast at a little restaurant over here, and there's a good friend of mine who meets every Friday morning with one of the pastors from our church. And they are there every Friday. They have a mentoring relationship. And I know that's been of great value. On the other hand, I have the opportunity to be able to speak into the life one time of a friend of mine in one set of circumstances that changed his life also. And so mentoring has lots of different styles, but speaking into the life of another one based upon the Christ experience and wisdom that you have is foundational to mentoring and exposes itself in lots of different ways. Because God has called me into so many different roles, I've had really a number of different mentors. You've got a business role and that kind of relationship that comes. You have your spiritual role and that kind of relationship. You have your role as a parent and those relationships. And so people who have spoken into my lives, whether it be in a one-to-one conversation, or maybe that mentoring took place because of a book that I read. Mentoring has a whole series of different ways that God's message can be delivered, internalized, and that you can play a role in that process.
Yeah, for me, I can't just have one mentor. I wear mentors out. I have 2 or 3 guys. Well, I have this one friend in Colorado I consider a mentor. He's bald, kind of looks like me, but just whiter hair. Yeah, Bruce Bruinsma. And I've got a couple other guys, my father-in-law being one, and I have another guy that just feed into my life. I need people that just are willing to smack me upside the forehead with a green treated 2x4 because it forces me to go deeper in my faith. But as a kid, right after I became a Jesus follower, I had the privilege of having a college kid pour his life into me. And I was a squirrely kid. I'm still squirrely at 55, but I was really squirrely as an 8th grader. And this guy poured his life into me, and we're still friends today. So 42 years later, he still is willing to invest his life into me. Off and on, he travels worldwide and trains pastors. But my life wouldn't be the same without the mentors that I've had in my life, willing to just speak truth. And like I said, just, hit me with a green treated 2x4 when I needed it. But I've also seen the value of pouring my life into others. And Martha and I've seen it even more in our marriage. When we mentor marriages, other couples, it definitely is a refining force in our own marriage. Bruce, why do you think mentoring? And you could say, I say discipleship is teaching others about Christ. Mentoring is demonstrating, teaching others about Jesus. Why do you think that's such a powerful force in the kingdom of God?
Well, I think when you talked about education and then the difference of mentoring, I believe as a teacher, I always learn more than my students ever will. Because in fact, the work that I have to do to prepare a lesson, for example, much more material, much more insight than I'm able to share. So I always grow as a result of my teaching. I think the parallel to that is that I grow as much or more in a mentoring relationship because I'm listening to what God is saying. I'm pouring the experiences that I've had and what He shared with me into their lives. And when that's happening, that is also being reinforced in my life as a reminder, perhaps, or perhaps, boy, I just shared this insight from my experience, but I really had never thought of it before. That was the Holy Spirit speaking through me, and I need to listen to what He is saying to me while I am sharing what He is saying through me to someone else.
Bruce, one of the things I think is so amazing is that everybody listening today, or almost everybody, I think it's categorical, but I might be wrong. Almost everybody feels like, I can't be a mentor. I don't have anything to offer. I feel inadequate to be a mentor. What do I have to pour of my life into somebody else? And that's what we need to change, because everybody listening to the show today, and the 50 million retirees in America have so much to offer. And the next upcoming generations, they desperately need to know. Maybe they don't need technology help, but what they need is interpersonal communications help, and they need to know how to manage their time and manage their money. There's so many things they need that retirees know because they know, and that the younger generations need to know. You wanted to close out this segment.
I do. Just two thoughts. No, the first thought is that what they need to know is that when you screw up, you can recover.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us have experience doing that. So we know what can come from making a mistake. And then I'd like to just close this segment with a quote, Jim, from your book, which I just highlighted it and I put a circle around it and I put an exclamation mark next to it. Here's what it says. Listen to this. Everything you have learned in your life, the good and the bad, is what makes you a great mentor.
And with that, we'll be right back. I'm More, and I Retire for Him, as we get to talk with Steve Barrett, and he gets to share his story about having a mentor in his life. Stay tuned.
The Retirement Reformation wants to come alongside you as you navigate in each stage of your retirement. Our online resources include our blog, our downloadable books, and life planning studies, as well as membership and coaching options. Go to retirementreformation.org and use these resources to begin the transformation of your retirement. Journey from retirement to reformation, so you can say, I retire for Him. That's retirementreformation.org. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him, the mouthpiece for the Retirement Reformation. During every second segment of every podcast, we always interview somebody talking about their story of, how they're living out their faith in their retirement, or a story about retirement. And my friend Steve Barrett from the Joy FM right here out of Sarasota, Florida, shared with me a couple of months ago a story of his mentor impacting on his life, his mentor who just recently went to be with the Lord. Steve Barrett, welcome to iRetire4Him.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Steve, over lunch a few months back, as we were celebrating the launch of the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce, you shared about your mentor. Who was your mentor?
My mentor was a guy named Jim. He was, I think he was 78 years old when he passed, about a year and a half ago. Just a great guy.
What kind of impact did he have on your life?
Oh, golly. That might be a great question to ask my wife. Because she understands the impact he had on my life. Just taught me, he showed me how to walk like a man.
Give me an example of that.
He told me things like, especially early in our relationship started probably in 2017, maybe.
Okay.
But early on, his message to me was, slow down. You'll get there faster,
Oh, wow.
And that was true in two respects. One is I do have a problem of ready, fire, aim, and just wanting to get stuff done. I've got to be productive, and yet slowing the pace and taking care, spending more time doing it right the first time, and enjoying it while I was doing it, So,
well, if your wife's available, we can always pull her into the conversation, but I'll trust you with the answers. We've been friends for a very, very long time. How did you meet Jim? And how did you end up in a mentoring relationship with him?
Well, we had both been attending a series of meetings, and I heard him share his views on life several times on different subjects. And after a period of time, I asked him if he would mentor me. So,
wow.
And he said yes. And probably for the first year and a half, I guess it was year and a half, I wasn't kept up with exactly, but we met every Wednesday afternoon at 4:30. Just to work through life. He took me through steps of walking out so many areas of my life. I hate to be vague. I'm not trying to be vague. It's just, golly, he helped me process stuff, Jim.
Well, and it's amazing to have somebody walk alongside you who's had all these years of experience. He was ahead of you, a couple of decades, and that's powerful to have somebody like that. It was such an honor to have him feed into your life. Think about the biggest thing. So you hung out together for 3.5 years before he passed. You spent that time together on Wednesday afternoons at 4:30. What was it like? Did you have questions that you brought with you every time, or did he say, "Okay, Steve, here's what I'm going to talk to you about today"? How did it work?
I asked him to teach me how to teach others. Teach me the things I need to know, but teach them to me in a way that I can help somebody else. And mainly, I took notes during those meetings. He would just talk and talk. And sometimes on the subject we were addressing, and sometimes on a related subject or what might be happening in our lives and how to handle situations, how to look at situations, how to change my thinking so that there wasn't that conflict between what I was thinking, what I was saying, and what I was doing.
So Romans 12:2 kind of moments, changing the way you think. I like that.
Yeah.
So what was Jim's background? Was he a professional mentor?
No, I don't know that he's ever been paid for it in terms of dollars and cents. He was in the corporate world. I mean, in a big way. This was back years ago. He's been retired for some time. All of the time I've known him, he's been retired. But in the last 40 years of his life, I'm one of probably 100 men or over 100 men that he has mentored.
Wow, what an honor.
Wow.
So you mentioned, well, we should really ask your wife the impact. How did having a mentor impact your marriage?
Um, he has taught me to be, or helped me learn, is the way he would like to think of it. He has helped me learn to be more altruistic, more caring of other people's feelings. And, I have a bit toward honesty. And he has helped me understand how to say things and do things in a way that are truthful, but not hurtful. And
I love that. I love that.
a little progress,
Oh, that's funny. You have a bent towards honesty, and he just helped you make that bent just a little more kind, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
I thought all Southerners were kind. I mean, you're my most Southern friend I think I have. I thought all Southerners were kind. I mean, they could, they always end it with "bless your heart," which means you're just stupider than a sandwich. But it's nice. All right, so we'll get back. All right, Steve, should everybody have a mentor?
The easy answer would be yes, but it's got to be at the right time. Jim, one of the things that Jim taught me was that you can't help people that don't want to be helped. They'll find somebody that wants to be helped. But the real thing he taught me was to mentor. It is and this is where the conversation started, I think, because over lunch in Orlando, we talked about what he had told me toward the end of his life on a repetitive basis. That is, it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying to ourselves that we are born to eternal life.
The prayer of St. Francis.
That's the last verse. And that's what he showed me, So.
So your mentor, Jim, has been gone for a year and a half, as you said. Have you sought out a new one yet?
No.
How come?
I'm still learning from Jim. Just as different situations come into my life, more of what Jim taught me becomes relevant, So, I may or may not. I mentor a couple of people. The value and the real growth does not come in being mentored. The real growth comes when you begin to mentor. That's where it changes your life. Being mentored may or may not. When you begin to mentor, though, that's when the light bulbs come on. So.
Yeah, that's the secret of Christianity, I think, that people don't realize that when you start to disciple and mentor others, that is when your faith grows to a level that you can't even imagine. Steve, looking back, had you ever had mentors like Jim in your life before Jim entered your life in 17?
Well, my pastor Craig discipled me for years on Wednesday night. I don't know what. That's funny that would be the same day. But Craig and I, we'd meet, and it was always Bible study type stuff. But just walking with him, and we're still good friends. We go to a lot of ball games together and stuff. There's people I look up to.
So when you look at your retirement years, which you're long ways out from retirement, but when you look at your retirement years, how will Jim's influence on your life impact how you look at the value of your retirement years?
I saw the people, how many people, and to what degree. I knew several people that Jim had mentored. And during the last year or so of his life, I had the honor on many occasions to take him to various medical appointments. But Jim was about 5'7", 245. And with some neck issues, there was a period of time that I couldn't get him in and out of the car by myself. With a phone call, Jim, there was a half a dozen people I could call that would drop what they were doing and come help me if I needed help getting Jim in and out of the car. So that's how he affected people.
Wow. Is it your desire to be that Jim in somebody's life as you grow older?
Sure. It would be an honor. And But we can't ever forget our greatest ministries at our house.
So what do you mean by that?
Oh, am I Christ to my wife? Uh, that's where our ministry begins. We work it from the inside out. And so the most important mentoring I can do is how I act and behave in front of my wife. And again, Jim taught me again, integrity or emotional sobriety is when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all on the same plane, when they're congruent. And I enjoy that emotional sobriety today.
I love that. And your kids are watching you and how you treat your wife, and that's how they're learning how to be married and treat each other. That's a powerful testimony. Steve Barrett, I appreciate you sharing your story about Jim. We want to honor Jim and the millions of other men and women that are out there mentoring others. And that's really the message to the Retirement Reformation crowd as they listen to iRetire4Him is pour your life into somebody else. It will pay back so manyfold. It's such a powerful one. Steve, thanks for sharing your story today.
Thank you. Jim told me, if all else fails, go help somebody.
We'll be right back with more on iRetire4Him. Every iRetire4Him show goes so quickly we don't often get to remind you that there are 2 resources you should be checking out right now. I recommend that you get a copy of the Retirement Reformation book and the iRetire4Him book. Retirement Reformation focuses on the mindset and behavioral changes needed, let's just say paradigm shifting, that is needed to live out your faith in retirement. iRetire4Him is focused on many of the ways you can put your faith into action by investing your life into others in your retirement years. Get both at the Retirement Reformation website in the bookstore, retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org. Hey, welcome back to iRetire4Him. Fantastic story. Just loved hearing Steve Barrett's heart about his mentor. Bruce, let's talk about what it looks like to put mentoring into action for the everyday retiree right here in America. Bruce, what does that look like for you?
One of the ways that it looks like for me is when I hear a little knock on my office door and one of my staff comes in and says, I think we got a problem. And I says, well, tell me about it. And whether it's personal or it's related to ministry or whatever it may be. And the opportunity for us to simply be able to identify what's true about the problem and to be able to explore together and to speak into the experiences that I've had or the way that I've seen that dealt with others, or simply to be a good questioner and pull from them what they can bring about solving that particular problem. That's one of the ways that mentoring takes place. Another way that mentoring takes place is after our life group, and someone comes up and says, I wanted to ask you a question. And he asked me the question, and my answer is, wow, why don't we go to lunch and let's talk about that a little bit more? I think there's a whole bunch there that we need to really explore together. And that leads to an ongoing dialogue from question A to question B, from challenge A to challenge B to challenge C, to a circumstance that in fact we can just share together. We can be legitimate, we can be real, we can be transparent, and we can be God honoring.
Yeah, for me, Bruce, the mentoring, it looks like I have this group of guys that I pour my life into. I call them the knuckleheads for Jesus. Because they tend to be all like me, kind of bull in the china shop kind of people. People you resonate with, and they all they need to ask the stupid questions to get it out of their system. And I get phone calls and I get text messages and I don't get emails from them, but they just want to know truth. Most of them came to Christ later on in life, and they're just like, I want to just tell me the truth, and don't pussyfoot around with me. I just want to know the truth, and it's fun. I look forward to those calls. The other night, Martha and I were traveling south from North Florida to South Florida and called one of those guys I've been praying for and mentoring for a decade. And I said, do you got an hour? You could buy us dinner. We'll stop by the highway right by your exit. You can buy us dinner. We'll have an hour-long conversation. We sat down with he and his wife, who their marriage wasn't perfect 10 years ago. And today it is so much better. And his attitude towards work was a little twisted and screwed up. And today he knows what it's like to run a kingdom company. And it was just it's so rewarding just to see the Lord use just conversations I've had, and then of course the Holy Spirit just pounding this guy all day long to see just amazing work. Bruce, I want to talk about from the book. I specifically really lay down what does it look like to be a mentor in your neighborhood, and I say this first thing. I say, you know what, and this is something that really irritates me. I've lived in Florida almost 20 years now, and what I see is that retired people hang out together, much to the detriment of the younger generations. In fact, they build walls around their neighborhoods and call them gated neighborhoods. And it's 55 plus, so it doesn't let any young people in. Although in Florida, technically only 80% are 55 plus. You can have 20% that are younger. But the issue is, I want to challenge everybody listening to this. If you're living in a retirement neighborhood, get out while you can. Plant yourself in a neighborhood full of young families. Why? Because they desperately need you. Most young families today don't have access to married folks. They don't have access to grandparents because of divorce or because of location. They need old people, or as we like to call them, chronologically superior people in their lives. And Bruce, I came up with some ideas on how to break the ice with those younger families. Can we talk about those today?
Sure. Absolutely.
One of the things I know with these younger families, and so I'm 55, Bruce, you're 80, and these younger families are in their 20s and their 30s. These kids today, they can't afford to go on a date if they have kids. Why? Because babysitting. Bruce, I know your grandkids are they're in the academy now. Or they're seniors in high school going to the academy or whatever that is. I know they're old, so you don't have to have babysitters for them. But the average family today is paying $20 an hour for a babysitter. So how do you go to dinner and a movie and a babysitter without spending $200? Most young families can't afford to do that. Here's my first idea. Make friends with these younger couples. Offer to babysit for them. Offer to babysit for them. That's worth hundreds of dollars. Plus, you get a chance to pour your life into these young kids who don't get access to old people very often. You ever seen? What do you think about that idea, Bruce?
I think that's a great idea, and a version of that is the single mom who never gets out and is always overworked. It never has time to go on a date, even if she had someone she wanted to date, or to go to a movie or go read a book or whatever. So to be able to be aware of people who your time brings value to, as well as the messaging that's there. I just think that's a absolutely great idea, and it's so easy. I guarantee you, if you don't know who to do it with, just call your pastor and say, which one of the young couples in the church do you think could use a break? He'll have 3 or 4 of them right on his list.
Oh.
Give him a call and make that offer. And that begins a relationship because you ask him, you say, would it be okay if I showed up maybe 15 or 20 minutes early and we could talk a little bit? And so I could learn a little bit about your family so I can even do a better job of taking care of your kids.
Well, and that works with those couples at church, but if you plant yourself in a neighborhood, you've got an opportunity to build that relationship over time. Here's another thing I know, is that young people love to eat, and most of them don't know how to cook real well, and they would love a home-cooked meal. So invite these young families over to your home, put up all the breakables, make your home kid-friendly, invite their whole family over and feed them. Play some games. One thing I know about this, the millennial generation and Gen Z, they love board games. It's so funny. They're so tired of video games. They love board games. Play a board game. Play a card game. Play a dice game. Play some games and just let them get to know you so that when you offer to babysit, they'll go, oh, heck yeah. Bruce, here's another thing I've learned. This younger generations, because divorce has been so prevalent in their lives, they don't have access to grandparents. They don't know how to do stuff. We joked about in an earlier show that young generations don't know how to use a manual screwdriver, certainly not a manual screwdriver with a flathead screw. They don't know how to do it. So I think, I know in your household, Judy's the handy one, right?
Yes.
But imagine if you took some time in your case, you could teach kids how to invest. I could teach kids how to fix stuff, how to detail their cars, because I did that for years. Martha could teach them how to cook. I can't teach them how to cook. I can teach them how to grill. But just everyday house stuff like changing a light bulb or changing a light fixture or changing a light switch. Kids don't know how to do that stuff, and they don't have the money to pay people to do it. What do you think? I mean, your grandkids, your grandsons that are football players and going to the academy, do they know how to cook and clean and fix stuff?
Well, they better than most, because my daughter is a real tyrant. But
she's going to get this show later, by the way.
But there are unique things that I have learned that I can share with them, that have shared with them, and will continue to share with them. It's how do you read a balance sheet? How do you go online when you look at your bank statement? How do you read it so you know how, in fact, understand what you've got and what happened? How do you set up a bank account? What is the difference between savings and banking? And all of those very basic things that they don't teach in school, and they need to know.
We've got friends in our lives, Dick and Karen LeBrant. They're in their late 70s now, and they said at an early age, when they were in their 50s, early 50s, they said, we're not going to hang out with people our age. We're going to hang out with young people. It's going to keep us younger, but they need us in their lives. And now they're in their late 70s, so almost 30 years later, a lot of those kids they were hanging out with are now in their 50s, but they're still hanging out with the college kids. And what I see is that it changes the attitude of most young people when they get exposure to chronologically superior folks. They get to understand and appreciate the wisdom that we can pour out to them, and we become a resource. Even if we can't roller skate with them or play tennis with them, we can still be that resource and that listening ear. And that's what this is all about. Mentoring is pouring our lives into others. Bruce, just imagine with me as we close out the show today, what would it be like if every Christian retiree would pour their lives into the lives of their neighbors? What do you think it would look like? How do you think our country would change?
Well, first of all, it would change our neighborhood. And when a neighborhood changes, all kinds of things come out of that. I think that is a step that if we can take that, and when we take it individually, make that decision, we can begin to chip away at a culture which is eroding our life, and we can make it better.
Pour your life into somebody else. If you're in a retirement neighborhood, move out while you can. Make some money on your house. Move into a neighborhood full of young families. Plant yourself. That's like planting yourself on a foreign mission field. Great conversation today, Bruce. And we just want to encourage each one of you retirees. You are not done. You've got so much life left in you to pour out into somebody else. You've been listening to iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, with your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Bruinsma. We're Christ followers, just journeying from retirement to reformation of our retirement ideas so we can ultimately say, I retire for him.
I retire for him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and Retirement Reformation founder, Bruce Bruinsma. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.